Hey, Bob Coppedge, crotchety old geek, also author of, CEO Survival Guide to Information Technology, the MSP Survival Guide to Co-Managed IT Services, and it's not published yet. I don't want your job. Is co-managed IT services the right fit for you? This is the second webinar, and we'll get to this in a second, talking to MSPs, managed service providers, about whether or not and how they can sell, market, support IT, traditional MSP services to organizations with internal IT by partnering up with them, or as we call it, CoMITs, co-managed IT services. There's actually another video, which I'll show a clip, or I'll show a link in a second, that actually is more of an introduction to it. You may want to start with that one. You also may want to join our Facebook group. There'll also be a link for that. And you also may want to pick up the book. There'll be a link for that. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk a little bit about how you can get basically a step up on implementing co-managed IT services for your MSP organization by getting guess what, a starter kit, which will be resources, information, and coaching from yours truly. Yeah, it's not all wonderful, to help you implement co-managed IT services for your MSP. So thanks. Now on to the webinar.
So here's what I wanted to do. And when I first of all, I'm going to make an assumption that everybody is at least partially familiar with the whole concept of CoMITs and all that kind of fun stuff, co-managed IT services. If not, take a look at the webinar we did earlier. Join the co-managed IT services group in Facebook, email me, whatever you want to do. The last month we had a talk that was talking about selling and marketing, and it dawned on me that what we really haven't talked about a lot is that whole, what is your CoMITs versus somebody else's CoMITs versus whatever, not only in terms of what the product is, but how to present it. And I decided that that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. And what I'm going to try to do over the next year is create about half a dozen or so of these type of events, these type of webinars, where we drill a little deep into specifics. And as you'll see, I've got some slides on this, but I also have just a lot of discussion points, and we'll see where this goes. As before, we will go ahead and we're recording this. We'll push it up onto YouTube, make it available to everybody, probably by the end of the week or so. Anywho, so all my contact. Again, if you're not a member of the Facebook group, there's about 180 or so members. Absolutely feel free. People are putting questions up there. It's not a huge amount of traffic, but there's some, and feel free to join in, all that. You'll notice that we have the actual logo, CoMITs for MSPs. There's more stuff going on as far as that starter kit goes. I'm not going to turn this into an advertisement. We may talk about this briefly at the end. Books on Amazon, yay. The third book, man, it's taken a little longer than I would have liked for the final. The holidays got in the way. Just met with the final editors this afternoon, and so I should see where this is going. The title of it is, I Don't Want Your Job, Is Co-Managed IT Services a Fit? And the whole goal of this is to be able to present this, starting from my standpoint, is to present this to potential clients, and it actually is written for the internal IT person, where it basically says, here's the pluses, here's the minuses, here's generally how it works, this is why it may be a good fit, this is why it may be a bad fit. It'll probably be about 75 pages, 5x8 book when all is said and done. I am on the road because that's the way my wife likes me, I think. I don't know. But I will be at AUVIC conference next week. I'll be participating in a panel discussion on MSP stuff hosted by Datto. Also be in Nashville at Robin Robbins, the TMT Producers Club, in the end of January. And then I will be at all of the ASCII shows throughout the year, all of which absolutely feel free to tug on my coat. Have any questions, anything along those lines. At some point, we may actually want to do some kind of get together. Is now joining. Where we basically say, hey, anybody want to talk about CoMITs on the side? Let's get together at such and such a time. We'll see how that goes. Blah blah blah. Okay, caveats for today, as always. The model is it's based on what I put in the survival guidebook. It is my model as far as which really aims at the small to medium business. And the reason being, and I've said, and it doesn't have to, but the model that I'm using is since our goal is to essentially come in and rescue that group, that internal IT, and to let them use our methods, our tools, our techniques, because we don't want to invent this every single time for every single client. Once you get to a certain size of IT department, a lot of cases they will already have their stuff there, and it'll become a much bigger, much harder selling point to get them to buy into your stuff. Whereas if you can come in and say, hey, I know you don't have time to document stuff. Hey, I know you don't have time to put it together a good ticketing system or inventory system or whatever. Uh, it works best for the smaller, for the SMB market, where they're large enough to have an internal IT person, but not large enough to have a well-defined internal IT. There are exceptions to that, and we will talk about that a little bit. And then, as always, I want to warn people, I ain't subtle. Okay. The agenda. Why is this important? And then what makes your offering yours, and pricing, and then our example of how we're doing things. And that's kind of how we're going. It's kind of a loose thing. And yeah, absolutely. As always, I really would love to hear any questions or conversations or anything that you guys have. The word I want to talk about is value. And we talk about that a lot from a business owner standpoint. And a lot of this is should be nothing new to you guys. Um, but it's that, what is it that you're doing that's adding value to your client? And again, I apologize if this is going to sound repetitious, because it should be. You should already know how to deal with this question and how to deal with this proposition. But one of the things from our standpoint that makes CoMITs work is what we're doing in what I'm calling the pure MSP, where there is no internal IT group or person or whatever, it's just us and them, is everything that we can do, whether it be the sales, the marketing, the service, the delivery, the feedback loop, everything is going to parallel our CoMITs relationship as much as possible. And the reason being should be, well, okay, maybe not should be for me because I'm not very bright, but it's because that way your organization is already set up to do CoMITs your way. You're not going to have, oh, we have to do it this way because it's a CoMITs, or this way because it's a pure MSP. One of the comments, I was talking with somebody before we really got started, and they were saying we're already doing CoMITs and we didn't know it. There's also some groups out there who are doing nothing but CoMITs, and they're doing it for much larger organizations. It's that, how do we do this in such a way that we can repeat it? Can we do this co-managed IT services in such a way that we can take our process and rinse and repeat, so a technician doesn't have to know how to do technical work for CoMITs only. They can actually be, without having, being afflicted with multi-personality disorder, where they can actually do CoMITs or pure MSP work without having to change their methodologies too much. So the reason I get back to that, now hopefully this is all, that all makes sense, but then we get into what's the value. Because the value proposition that you have, it's basically, if somebody asks you the question, you're talking to a potential client, and forget whether it's CoMITs or pure MSP, and they say, why should I choose you? Do you have an answer for that? Do you have something that actually makes sense? And because what you want to do, again, my opinion, is you want to duplicate that over on the CoMIT side. Because otherwise you're going to have two totally different value propositions, and you're going to have to try to keep track of who you're talking to and why and what's the value, or worse, you're going to try to be everything to everybody. And you get that whole conversation with people, and we love to ask this question. We hate to be asked, what is it that keeps you up at night? What's that thing that really blah, 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 scares you, fears you, whatever? And my answer is always commoditization. I don't want to be a commodity. And that's my biggest fear as an organization, as an MSP, is I want to make sure that we're always doing something further different and that's unique to a certain degree. And that's basically here. So why do clients choose you? And by the way, those of you who are Robin Robbins folks, at her last quarterly meeting, she actually did a decent set on this. And I'm not taking any of the information from her. She's got good product. She's got good programs, all of that kind of fun stuff. This is something that we've been aware of here for literally since about time we started. But why do clients choose you? You need to have a simple answer. And the simple answer has to make sense. And here's the other thing. It has to be something that not everyone would want, because otherwise you're trying to solve everybody's problems. So if you make a statement, so for example, we basically go, we're creating a jerk-free IT environment. And we also say we're the cool guys in IT. And then what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that we don't do long-term contracts. We give our clients access to all of our portals, all of our tickets, all of our information. We don't condescend. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of support as far as making them better. All of these things are like soft touches. Now, we don't get buried in the small print or the fine print or anything along those lines. Now, notice that there are some companies who would listen to that and go, oh, I need a solid contract. I need fine print. I need all that. Well, that's not us then. Or, oh, I don't want to have to pay for all of that training or that support or some of those things. So can you cut that out? No, we want to have that relationship. We want to build that. So there are people who, as we describe these things, are going to say, you're not for us. And that's fantastic. That's great. So what you want to watch out for is your better or best claims. Best at. If all you can do is you can say we're the best at something, at most what you're basically saying is my competition hasn't caught up, but as soon as they do, there's no difference. Or meaningless. We're dedicated to quality. Well, because nobody else is? What do you mean by that? What's that actually mean? Appealing to everybody. Best support for the best price and the best timeline and the best. You can't do that for everybody. And so what is it about you that your clients love? And I will tell you that in this discovery, if you look at our business cards and our logos, we basically have a saying: vision, confidence, and strategy for business IT. And I will tell you right now, what a load of bullshit. Pardon my French. Is we put that in there at the beginning. It was part of the logo when we first went into business, and it sounded good. We thought it sounded, I thought it sounded like what our clients would like. Not necessarily what we were delivering, but what our clients would like. And I still, to this day, can't tell you those words without looking at my card, because it's not us. It's not what we do. The cool guys, the jerk-free IT environment, that we've got. Learn first, teach first. We've got those things because those are built into our values, and that's what we do. And so at some point, we'll probably redefine the logo or change it slightly. And so there's really two things that I would suggest here that are needed from your guys' standpoint on this. Is number one is, why do clients choose you? And try to come up with something that is at most 5 or 6 words. It doesn't have to be microscopically accurate, but it should be, that's us. And it wasn't, the cool guy thing didn't really come to us until about 2 or 3 years into it, because of the feedback that we got from our clients and because of our talking points whenever we tried to describe who we were and what we did. So it was a discovery process that we had to go through. And you already, if you've been an MSP for a few years, you already have it. You may just not know it. And in some cases, it may be an aspirational thing, meaning that you're not there yet, but you want to be careful of that, because then you're promising but not delivering. But it still should be, what is it? And then tweak that for CoMITs. Because if we're going to be the cool, the jerk-free, the whatever, we can then turn that into and really push the partnership, really push the skills added, or excuse me, the experience added, how we can help you, we can make you better, we can make you stronger. So we're much more of a coming in from a greater level of knowledge or experience, and we're going to share it, we're going to help you, we're going to nurture you, and all that kind of fun stuff. So if we have IT departments who, for lack of a better term, and I, if this gets out, I'm in trouble, but for lack of a better term, have not necessarily an inferiority complex, but know they're lacking in certain skills, that's going to appeal to them, because we're here to partner with them, we're here to improve them, we're here to whatever. If we have an IT group that is extremely well skilled, they're going to tell us what to do. Not so much, and that's absolutely great, because we're focusing where our strengths are. Okay, so the homework for you is, what is that value? What is that? Who are you? What's the value your organization brings? And then how do you turn that over to the co-managed? Because that should be part of the discussion that you have with your potential clients. And if you focus it on this way, and when you think about it, this whole value proposition is really reinforcing who you are. So it's a feedback loop, because it is what you do, it is who you are. And if you communicate that effectively to your potential clients, then the ones who that's important to are going to gravitate towards you. And you're going to try to get better at doing that thing, and they're going to enjoy, because that's what they're really looking for. So again, everybody wins, and you're not faking it. They're not faking the need or the interest. You're not faking the ability and the desire to get better at it. And it's not oh God, I have to be, nice again, or whatever. So it's a process. And again, the key reason I bring this up is, one, from a traditional MSP, it's absolutely is critical. But if you're going to try to also have a parallel CoMITs program, you need to make sure it is just that, it's parallel. Because if not, every angle, every degree that it's off course, it's not parallel, that's a degree of basically friction and wasted energy that you're going to create. So go through this process. Ask your clients, if you had to use one or two words to describe me or describe my organization, what would you use? And why? Is that important to you? Why is it important? And just ask that question. And be honest, and ask them to be honest. The other thing is, you personally. Everybody, and I've had this talk, especially in terms of people who get up front and speak. And it is you cannot be a speaker for everyone. You cannot be a speaker who is going to make every audience fall in love with you, or have everybody hanging on every word and all that. It's not going to work. What do you want people to walk away with after you've spoken? Well, I want them to be smarter. Yeah, I get it. There's information, there's content, there's all of that. But as far as you, if they talk about you, the speaker, what do you want them to walk away with? And essentially, for me, it's basically a combination of integrity and realism. I'm not faking it. This is who I am. You're getting it. And actually, the word I was looking for was authentic. That's what I want. I want people to see, I just saw an authentic person. He was an idiot, but he was an authentic idiot. And those people who want that relationship, that jerk-free IT relationship, and they see this as being, well, he's an authentic presenter, it helps, again, for that type of CoMITs that we're talking to, that type of company with an internal IT department. All right, so you see how it's all kind of merging together. And these aren't hard processes for you to do. And again, what I suggest is take a look at yourself from a personality standpoint and basically say, okay, if I'm talking up in front of a group, who am I? What am I presenting? You don't want to fake it, because again, the more you fake it, the harder you have to be, or the harder you have to work at that persona, that personality, than the actual content. And again, wasted energy, friction. And I know some people, I was talking to one person who co-presented at a panel thing I did in California about 4 or 5 months ago, and she and I were talking about it, and she was absolutely, I mean, she is incredibly focused on her poise and professionalism, and it shows. And I mean that in an incredibly complimentary style. It's something I could never do that. But she is, and her history and her background, you understand exactly why. But she is basically about what's the experience. People are going to walk away. I want people to know that I know my stuff. I'm very focused. I'm very well organized. I'm very all of these kind of things, all of which are things I'm not. Because she knows what she's going for as far as a presentation and what's to walk away. And I know what I'm going for in terms of mine. Once you have those two things, what is the value as far as your organization goes, and what's the term, or what's the persona that you're looking to present, then all of the other questions in terms of how do I organize, how do I prioritize, how do I coordinate, how do I really fall into place, because you can start answering the questions with, well, does it take us closer to this goal? Now, you also have to make sure that it's desirable in terms of the clients. So you need to make sure, why do clients choose you if you essentially, because I know how to juggle 4 tomatoes, and nobody cares about that. So you have to offset it with some realism in terms of there's need for that. So let me ask this, is this useful? If you could answer the chat, or if anybody has any questions, or if everyone's gone to sleep. Cool. Thank you. All right. And again, anybody has any questions or comments or anything, please add to it, because otherwise I'm just hearing myself talk and nobody wants just that. Now, here's the problem that we can run into. If you remember from our previous conversations as far as CoMITs goes, this is a big part of it, what we call stamps, services, tools, methodologies, portals. And these are tools, but they're just means to an end. They're just tools that we use because the guy down the street or gal down the street, I have 3 daughters, I have to be careful, can add these just as well as we can. And quite honestly, some tools are going to be better than others, although quite honestly, I think it's much more a question of how do you configure and use the tools or the stamps than it is the stamps themselves, but that's just me. These are important, but they're a means to the end. So you want to have these, but in my opinion, these do not become part of the conversation because they don't add value. The results of them add value. You get back to the whole conversation on marketing. Nobody buys a drill, everybody buys a hole. And the same thing, you're providing the security, you're providing the documentation, you're providing the ability for internal IT people. So you're going to them and
exiting.
And you're saying basically that they can use the tools to track their own documentation, to track their own inventory, to do these things. So you're basically giving them value. Now notice that the value I'm talking about is to them, to the internal IT people, not necessarily to the company. Because there's really 2 layers of client we have here. We have the independent IT, the internal IT person, and then we've got the client organization as a whole. And we want to be able to service both, which we certainly can, but we want to service both through the internal IT person. So we want to take whatever the results, and here's where we can start talking about the value, and the value being that we're going to make it so you can have a good inventory. We're going to make it so that you can deal with the ticketing. We're going to make it so that you have someone to talk to ask for questions or support or the like. So you've got all of those abilities in terms of adding on and all that kind of fun stuff. Okay, but it's not as important, in my opinion, as far as the offerings and the value. So how do we do it? So this is I'm actually going to bring up the PowerPoint itself. Is this it? So in theory, you should be able to see the critical point slide. This is actually, and I'm going to go into advertisement mode a little bit. This is actually the presentation that we created for our CoMITs breakfast, that if you go with the starter kit, you'll get all this information plus more. So here's the thing. Remember what we talked about when we talk about value. Who are we? We're the cool guys. We share. We do all that kind of fun stuff. So what we decided to do early on when we were putting together a CoMITs event was we wanted to really knock down first of all, the trust wall. We wanted to really build trust between ourselves and our visitors, the internal IT people. And the best way we could figure out to do that was to add value. To basically say, we're not going to try to sell you anything. We're not going to try to pitch anything. We're going to try to make your lives easier. We're going to try to do that just by you attending and by listening to our presentation. And so what we do is we basically said, what are 3 ways that you can improve your IT without bringing in consultants? Now, and by the way, this is based on the Dick Dees, whatever, sales process, which has been very worthwhile as far as putting this together. And what we do is we basically spend about 45 minutes in front of internal IT people trying to make their lives easier and trying to be coach, trying to be mentor, trying to be their advocate, trying to give them suggestions. Because remember, we were talking about these guys being kind of on their own and being in a smaller organization. They may not have the experience on how to deal with these situations. They don't have anybody to ask questions to, or the couple of people or junior people that report to them, so they don't know what to do. So for us to be able to say, hey, I've been there, we've been in your shoes, here are some things you can do. And we basically go through very quickly and very easily is, what are you going to discover here? This is why this is for you. And a little bit of information on me. And of course, caveats. I always have caveats. And really, I spent 3 topics on 3 topics. One is you need to start documenting. And the second is, what are your single points of failure? And the third is how to improve relationship between IT and management. What I do is I really spend a amount of time and I really push to improve their lives. I'm not pushing to bring us in for CoMITs. We don't even talk about it till about 5 minutes left. Again, I've used this story several times, but I used to be CIO, head geek, whatever you want to call it, at a sunroom manufacturing company. And this was back in the 90s, early 2000s. And one of the most successful salespeople, and we had like 40 some locations, most on the east side of the Mississippi, but was in Cleveland, and one of the laziest guys I ever knew, but he was successful. And I wanted to ask him how he did it. And he said that once a year he would go to every adult education center. This was before internet and YouTube, and he would put on a session, a night-long session, evening session about how to install and build your own sunroom. And he said he would spend 2 hours doing everything he possibly could to teach them how to install and put in their own sunroom. How to do foundations, how to do permits, how to do whatever. And he said he never advertised himself at all, didn't push anything. And by the end of that evening, nobody in their right mind would want to install their own sunroom. It was too complicated. They didn't have the skill set, but they looked at this guy and they said, he didn't try to sell us. He just tried to educate us. He tried to make us smarter. He did this. I trust him. And he'd make his cards available. He'd give everybody a business card, but that's as far as it went. They would then contact him and say, you're right, we don't want to do it, but what do we need to do? We're taking that same tact, and this is probably the 150th time I've told that story. We're taking the same tact here in that we're going to just use these 3 just to build that trust, build that level, so when they want to do something, they'll bring us in. So what we then do is we essentially say, if you want to, let's talk about IT, co-managed services. I'll just ask for a 45-minute meeting at the office. We'll talk about, we'll continue the conversation that we've already started. So we're going to talk about your status quo. We're going to talk about your situations, your challenges, opportunities. This is all about you, all of that kind of stuff. And then at the end of that meeting, you'll have something to do. So again, I'm adding value. So now I've created two situations, two scenarios where we're adding value. And then after that meeting, then we'll finally, and only then, we'll talk about what role, CoMITs, whether it's a good fit. Now, the reason I'm doing all this way is twofold. Number one is because I really want to build that trust. I want to make them think that we're more interested in adding value for them than us, and that we actually do think in terms of what's good value, what's bad value, whether it's a good move or bad move, whatever, as far as fit goes, all of that kind of fun stuff. Now, what I mean by this, as I enter puberty again, is that this works for us because of the nature of our value proposition. We're the cool guys, jerk-free IT environment. We give you access to everything. We're already adding value, so on and so forth. When you look at your marketing message, you need to either A, say, yes, this works for me, or you take whatever your value proposition is and tweak it into something similar to this. So what are some examples of this? Without knowing any of your value propositions, and if any of you have one that you care to share and we can actually do some triage, go ahead and put it in the chat. But let's say, for example, that you're very big on security. Okay. If you're big on security, then what you can do is you can essentially say, hey, we're going to do a work and let's come up with some easy ways to either improve your cybersecurity layout or easy ways for you to communicate to management about how important cybersecurity is. Not bring management with you, because you bring management with you, you just want me to bring my boss with me so that they can know how stupid I am and how smart you are. No, we're going to help you work with your boss and your management so that they understand it's coming from you. Okay, but that's just basically one idea. And if all you do is the cybersecurity, then what you're really presenting is what I would call the silo managed services. That's where you would provide, you're just going to do the security services. They'll do all the other stuff, which is great. But I would say that you can actually take that, do the MSSP stuff. So you're doing the silo, but then also do the CoMITs, which is where you'd give them access to all of the other tools, the ticketing, the RMM, the whatever, so they can do their job as well. Again, with the idea being that really increases the glue. That really increases the relationship and the reliance that they have on you. Does that make sense? Pause for questions. Okay. But you're still with me, right? Okay. Thank you, Randy and Kayla and John. So again, the way we're doing this breakfast, and again, this is all of the details and specifics are included in the starter kit, but it's something that even if you don't buy the starter kit, you can do it yourself. All we did it in November. We had 15 attendees, 5 signups, 2 upgrades. 2 upgrades, actually it's now 3. One processed, actually 2 processes in review, so it actually worked out well for us. And now what we're doing is we're taking our marketing, and we now do, and again, we're part of Robin Robbins, so I can't give all the details as far as what we do from her standpoint, but we're using her marketing pieces, which are traditional, or as I'm calling now, pure MSP opportunities. We're now adding or modifying them slightly to include, hey, if you've got your internal IT and you like them, and we add another piece of marketing in that program where it's specifically aimed to the internal IT person and talks about co-managed and co-managed IT services. And that works. Now, here's what we're doing. Every quarter and every month, we put out 4 direct mail pieces, which are all, again, Robin Robbins stuff. So what we do is in the first month, so we've got our QCT. Keith, I'll get your question in a second. So we've got the unfortunately, it's a really annoyingly good question. We do our QCT, that's quarterly client training. That's for our clients only. We bring them in for half a day or as many as we can, usually around 20. I'd rather see more. So that's a client only thing. The second month, so February, we're going to do the CoMITs breakfast for internal IT folks. And then the third month, we're going to be doing cybersecurity breakfast, which is for everybody. And every quarter, we're repeating this. So in April, we'll do the QCT. May, we'll do the CoMITs. June, we'll do the cybersecurity. July, QCTs, la da 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 da. So whenever we're putting out mailing pieces, we can invite people to either the upcoming CoMITs or the upcoming cybersecurity breakfast, no matter where it is. All right. And rinse, lather, repeat. And you can always, like I said, and I've said this before, when you are doing your marketing and the marketing focuses on your value presentation, remember that when you're doing your marketing, you can essentially always say, here's pure MSP, but if you want to go CoMITs, this is great. The problem is if you start talking to somebody about CoMITs, you're talking to their IT people about CoMITs, you can't then switch off and go, hey, we want to do pure MSP and replace you. Because that's going to look like you used CoMITs as a way to wedge your way in to get rid of them. So now to your question, Keith, I wish I knew how. So how do you develop the list of IT managers that have no other internal and or external help? It is really, really hard. And we did not until recently. So what we do now is we basically find, because when you do list cleaning, and there are some people who are much better at it than we are, more or less probably, it's really hard to get to identify. You might be able to identify who's the main person to contact, but to then say, and who does the IT decisions, and is there an IT department, it's hard to do. So that's why we do primarily MSP marketing with a CoMITs tag on to it, so that someone can see, oh, you do CoMITs as well. Okay, as far as our direct mail and all that. The exception to that is LinkedIn. If you go with LinkedIn, and we're just starting to do this now, in fact, well, we're actually not quite done getting started. Probably by February, we'll actually have our first results out. In LinkedIn, if you've got the fee version of LinkedIn, you can actually go in and say, I want to build a, for lack of a better word, a database of all people with the following titles. And you go IT manager, CIO, data processing manager, whatever, IT, blah, 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 for companies within our geographical area, or you want to, and with employees between this size and that size. Okay, Mark, you're running a physical mail campaign. Have our sales team follow up for marketing pieces. Yeah, and absolutely, and that's the thing you can do, depending upon. And we don't have our sales team call. We have basically appointment setters. But absolutely, we try to then nail down whether we got the right person, whether they're getting it, whether it's somebody else we should send to. Because our challenge is, if we can get a right live body in terms of a management person or IT management, that's great. We haven't been able to identify the IT people in a large enough number for us to warrant splitting off, so we have a specific CoMITs and a specific pure MSP campaign. Right now, we try to do the first month, we'll do 200 people, and we'll call them and we'll do all that kind of stuff. And then whoever's left over, which is usually around 110, we'll then do a follow-up campaign to them 3 months later, and then a follow-up campaign 3 months later, and a follow-up campaign 3 months later. So we will touch everybody in that 200 group with 4 different campaigns with about 5 or so phone call follow-ups. Every time we invite them to the next CoMITs and the next cybersecurity breakfast. So, yeah. So now I want to switch over to pricing. And really, boy, it really depends on your pricing model. And really, this is mislabeled. I need to change this. It's really dependent upon your costing model. Now, we're really going to talk about just a couple of ways that we do CoMITs from our standpoint, but the model, it should be, relatively speaking, similar to you guys, or for you guys. These are the 3 most common CoMITs model for us. Full commits, I'll start from the bottom apparently. Full commits, it's kind of like monitoring only. Do not use that as a comparison. But really what's happening is we're providing them with all the stamps. We're providing them with a lot of free advice and, devil's advocate, and double checking and all that. But fixing everything, dealing with the tickets, doing all that, that is all on them. So we're really their backup and their foundation, if you will. Then going back to the top, we basically break it down by servers and infrastructures versus workstations and end users. And reason being is because that's really where the skill sets usually break down. If you've got people who are like level 1 techs, they can usually handle all the workstations and the end user stuff, but they can't do the servers or infrastructures, or vice versa, in terms of, we have people who are really good as far as working on servers or infrastructures. I don't want them bothering with password resets for end users, whatever. The workstation commits, and it's named based on what the internal IT person does. So the workstation commits is basically where we'll do the servers and infrastructures, and vice versa. Server commits is exactly the reverse. So those are the three. But here's the way we look at it, and keep in mind, it's all a question of costing, because and let's just start with full commits. With full commits, you have all of the costs of your stamps, and then whatever the cost is of the technical support that you're providing. And by technical support, it's essentially all the stuff that your human beings are doing. Now, you can get into, depending upon if you're following, true methods or whatever, there's different ways to layer that out. You may want to do so that you'll do all the proactive stuff yourself, and they'll do whatever. However you do it, you basically, it's the technician time that is not being applied that keeps it from being a pure MSP. So you essentially take a look at the costs you've established, whether it be a server cost, a desktop cost, a technician cost, a site cost, or whatever, and you apply a discount to that cost. You don't eliminate it. You apply a discount. And the discount should be a heavy discount. And the reason I'm saying heavy discount is because their IT people are doing it all. So why not remove that entirely? Not so fast. You don't remove it entirely because of two things. One is you're going to have some overall operational costs on your part of your technicians just to maintain the stamps, just to keep them running, to do upgrades, updates. You may end up doing, because of your network administrator group's reviews, you may be changing what the best practices are. You may be doing whatever. And then in addition to that, you're going to help them. So they're going to ask you questions. They're going to run ideas by you or by your people. They're going to do all that, and that comes with a cost, and you should be paid for it. So you can take a look at that tech discount or that discount in terms of your technical costs, and you can look towards, and you can either price it all out and discount it, or you can cost it and then discount and apply your profit margin, whatever, however you want to do it. So if, let's say, for example, that you are charging $75 per machine. And keep in mind, I'm talking about on the technician side, not the stamps. So the cost for the antivirus, the cost for the RMM tool, the cost for any backup tools, all that's separate in terms of this question. But you would charge $75 for the technician's cost. You may discount that by 75%. And yes, Robert, you just came up with bad math for yourself, but that would be basically 75% of $75 that you would discount. So you would only charge 25% of that. Let's say it's $80 a machine and you discount it by 75%. That would basically be, you would be charging $20 per server or per workstation, if that was what you were going with. Okay? Now, and then you apply, somewhere in there, you're applying the profit margin. And by going through this process, it is entirely up to you as far as how and when, or how you want to present this to the client. You may want to present it as, this is how much we would charge you for the entire managed service for a pure MSP, and we're going to discount you this much. Look how much money you're saving. Oh, by the way, you're still paying your people their salaries, so maybe not as much, or however you want to approach it. Gives you the choice. But the idea is essentially you're significantly discounting, and usually we are somewhere between 90% down to 75%. Part of that is dependent upon how many desktops or servers. Part of it is based on what we think the technical competency is of the client. Quite honestly, if it looks like we think they're going to be calling us a lot, then the discount isn't as great. However you go, as far as that goes, and again, you want to put this together in such a way that you're making sure that you've got enough price and enough cost in there and enough profit so that your value isn't lost. And again, we've had a couple of instances where potential clients have talked to us and they've said, well, we had monitoring only agreements and they paid like $300 a month. Oh, okay. Well, how did that work for you? Oh, it was horrible. We would get these alerts. We had no idea why. Anytime we asked them a question, they immediately wanted to bill us. And it turned out they never really looked at any of the alerts or anything along those lines. So we want to look at this full CoMITs. Oh, okay. Did they include any antivirus? No, they were just monitoring only. Any backups? No, they were monitoring only. Any hardware as a service? Any firewalls? Any of that? No, just monitoring only. Okay, well, we're going to come in and for us to do a full CoMITs with including all these equipments and these services and blah, 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 it'll be $2,500 a month. What? It was $300 a month before, and you're doing the same thing. No, we have to be better. We have to make sure that we're communicating what the value is. And if you communicate the value, and the value is not what you're doing, the value is what the improvement is on the part of the client. Don't forget training. You got to have training, and this sets you apart. This is from our first training event. This is tech director, Kevin, third from the right, and then two senior techs, Adam and Kurt on the far left, and our CoMITs technicians. We brought in for 2 days of CoMITs training, and that worked well for us. So we're getting close to, I'm kind of running out of stuff to talk about on this. I will say, for those of you who have been seeing what we're doing and all that, we do have a CoMIT starter kit. Yes, I am going to be monetizing this stuff. It is not quite ready. Actually, almost everything is ready except for the book and the website to actually do the purchase. We do have some spots available in case anybody is interested. This will ultimately cost $1,000 for 1 year of updates and additions. It's the full program plus the books and blah, blah, blah. And if you sign up early, you'll get an offer for about a week or two to buy it at half price or for $500. If you're interested in that, shoot me an email, and shoot me an email if you want. I'll send you a presentation and a couple of the marketing pieces that we use. Was this useful? Everybody's asleep again.
Yes, sir. Very good.
Cool. I appreciate the feedback. So this is pretty much it. Again, you'll get some more information. I'll email you guys out the presentation. Plus, I'll email you this stuff as far as more information about the starter kit. You can see over on the bottom right of the screen, that's our logo for CoMITs for MSPs. It will ultimately be CoMITsForMSPs.com. That site is nothing at this point, but that will go up as well. So with that, also I'd love some feedback on this, how to tighten it up, make it better, stronger, all that kind of fun stuff, as well as what should be future topics. Be interested in hearing that as well. And with that, also always include a couple of reading at the end, and always my lovely granddaughter. Give me some feedback, would appreciate that. And with that, Unless you guys have anything else, we are done. Thank you all for coming.
Hey, Coppedge again, crotchety old geek still. Hopefully that was useful for you, and hopefully that gave you some idea as far as what's necessary for you as an MSP to create that value proposition, to answer that question very, very effectively. Why you versus the other guy? You know, what is it that's unique about you, your value proposition? This is even truer in a lot of ways when you're talking co-managed IT services. So take advantage of it. Email me, bob@simplex-it.com, if you want some marketing examples and some additional follow-up. I'll also send you information about a new startup. It's not fully up as of January. It will be by February 2020, excuse me. And that is the co-managed IT services starter kit. This is a combination of books, including a version of books that's not available on Amazon, also some marketing pieces, full-fledged out marketing campaigns that we've used and we're going to continue to use and develop that you can get. Email me, bob@simplex-it.com. I'll send you the information. And if you're early enough, I'll even tell you how you can save some money by being a beta tester for it. We've already got a couple dozen people signed up to do it. I'm open to a couple more. Any case, hope this was useful. Again, Bob Coppedge, crotchety old geek. Bye.